your attitudes toward the Negro and the Jew, and the Nazi attitude toward other races. Not a difference in brutality, but a difference in basic philosophy. If there is an essential difference, I said, then the American soldier might logically become a defender of the four freedoms: freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. But if there is no essential difference between your race philosophy and that of the Nazis, a second question should be posed: what are you fighting for? Many of these Americans who could not distinguish between themselves and Nazis came from religious homes, or they claimed to be representatives or even leaders of the American faith. Apparently, their faith was quite different from the faith behind the four freedoms. On the other hand, many of them, no doubt, would have disclaimed possessing anything they would call faith, yet all of them, whatever their answers to these questions, spoke the faith that was in them, and for many of them, it was a trust in white Gentile supremacy, faith in the blood.
Today, I had planned to give the second half of two services on the 100th anniversary of the Scopes trial of 1925, a court case in Tennessee that made national news as the first time a teacher was prosecuted for teaching evolution in a public school, which was in defiance of a law that the state had recently enacted. Last week was the Unitarian Connection, in which I focused on the work of Minister Charles Francis Potter. Today was to be What Have We Inherited?, examining how we have and haven't progressed in a century in religion and science, and how some of the differences continue to exist in education and society as they did back in the 1920s. That was my plan. However, there was a matter in the news this week which needs so much more attention in my view, and that's what I'll talk about today. I'm calling this thought, speech, action. It gets to how racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, and fascism also continue to exist. Early this year, around the time that the current U.S. president was inaugurated, I called on us, in part for our own peace of mind, not to be looking for the next offense in the news, knowing that there would be many. Well, some of these offenses can't be ignored or glossed over. One happened this week, and in that we see the deep-seatedness of racism and hatred, along with those people's admiration of authoritarian leaders who use tools of hate to get their way. This past Tuesday, the digital news publication Politico had an exclusive story titled, "I Love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat." The lead sentence: leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. This is important, so much so that I'm replacing a planned sermon to put this to us and to call for our continuing response to racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, fascism, to counter political differences that threaten peace and promote danger, to influence good, not just by living our values and observing the Golden Rule, but by actively being in opposition and using our voices and actions to help bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice. To use our thoughts, speech, and actions, both to counter this hatred and to advance our understanding of what the democratic principle is and should be, especially for anti-racism and beloved community. Heather Cox Richardson, the historian who writes a daily Letter from an American, included in her October 14th entry, "Today, Jason Bieferman and Emily Ngo of Politico reported on 2,900 pages of messages exchanged on the messaging app Telegram between leaders of the hardline pro-Trump factions of young Republican groups in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. In the edgy messages, the leaders used racist themes and epithets freely and cheered slavery, rape, gas chambers, and torturing their opponents. They expressed admiration for Adolf Hitler. One of them wrote to the others, "If we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real." Slavery, racism, rape, sexism, gas chambers, anti-Semitism, torturing their opponents, fascism. Why is this report different from so much other news related to the right-wing takeover of U.S. government and, to a large degree, society? Though Vice President J.D. Vance, whom some of us once praised for insight from his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, but who later showed his ambitious conservative colors, said on the Charlie Kirk show that the messages were edgy, offensive jokes told by kids. The messages are so much more than that. It was continuing conversation in private, containing so much hate, and we saw what they think and believe, held strongly enough that, rather than respond to one another in some correcting way, knowing that they were being offensive or out of line or more directly racist, they and the others in the chats kept going and knew that their thoughts and beliefs were unacceptable to the general public. I condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk, but he's not a martyr to a cause. And his is not the only voice that has been a comfort to political conservatives who seem to be taking up fascism and continuing to promote white supremacy and Christian nationalism. For that Telegram group chat, some people's digging found that the ages of the participants were between the ages of 24 and 35. They're not kids, but young adults. These aren't what someone running for political office once called youthful indiscretions. In the campaign for president in 2000, that was the term applied to George W. Bush's drug use when younger. And he was declared the victor that year by the Supreme Court rather than the national vote, which Had it been given the time to arrive at an accurate count, an accurate electoral count, would have elected Al Gore. These continued messages on Telegram, more than 28,000 messages, the Politico report stated, with the participants not called on their extremity by others in the group, were so accepted by their peers that they joked about the damage a leak would do to them. And they continued using the same language. I think damage to them should come about. They've shown hatred and should not be political representatives of we the people. We can't be so soft on siding with love that there are no consequences to people exhibiting hatred. We know their thought. We have their speech. We see their intended action. These are people involved in politics in this country that's supposed to have the democratic principle, and they've shown racism and other hate, and they accept that among their group. I say, let them be cooked, as one participant stated, but I don't think they really feared it would come about. And let's see that this glorification of racism, white supremacy, sexism, anti-Semitism, and Nazism is never accepted. 2,900 pages of messages is not insignificant. I've read that an elected state official in Vermont resigned, that the Young Republicans organization in New York is revoking the group's charter so that it can begin anew with new leaders who I hope have learned from this to behave decently rather than hide their prejudices. That several participants in the chat have lost their jobs. There's more accounting to be had, I expect. Yesterday, many of us gathered for a No Kings demonstration, seeing a little bit of the numbers along with us who are in opposition to the current government, along with our condemning the actions of that leadership and our fear that they will make ways to remain in power. People turned out in large numbers. I read 7 million this time. The first No Kings a couple of months ago was 6 million. Large numbers all over the nation, which is gratifying for us to know that we're not so alone. But the groups that actually hold political power, rather than toning things down, and by doing that suppressing their true feelings, are using secret police. I think the Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, ICE, and law enforcement from so many other federal agencies, obscuring their identities and names behind masks and combat gear, are properly called secret police now. The president's people won't accept a No Kings message. They want their president, who has shown he doesn't accept the prior concept that the U.S. president is the president of all the people, to use whatever means the president can acclaim, constitutional or not, to help the president's people only. The president's secret police don't seem to be accountable to any disciplinary authorities. They'll do what they want, warrant or not. In addition to the secret police, business leaders and corporations are paying to be accepted in the graces of the people in political power, which does our 250-year-old democratic experiment no good. Does capitalism thrive just as well in fascism as in democracy? I think we're finding that out. In Toledo, we haven't really seen the extremes of ICE as secret police. I've read of ICE raids in the area, but nothing in large scale. I don't think there are resident ICE patrols around here that get the people's resistance. And my understanding is that the Corrections Center of Northwest Ohio, which has a contract to hold people detained by ICE, treats all the people confined there with dignity. If people have to be jailed, at least let them be treated decently. And don't you get the impression that our area's peacefulness is representative of most of our country? We see the news. We read about the extremes, about the way the current presidential administration ignores the rule of law, has contempt for courts and Congress, and has the attitude that it can do anything. Is that supported in part by the Supreme Court's saying that the president can't be prosecuted for actions as president, only impeached so the many laws that are broken amount to nothing while the president holds power? The Unitarian Universalist minister Davidson Lohr, in a 2004 sermon he titled Living Under Fascism, collected in his book, America, Fascism, and God, Sermons from a Heretical Preacher, referred to 14 identifying characteristics of fascism set out by political scientist Lawrence Britt. Lohr said, "See if they sound familiar. 1, powerful and continuing nationalism. 2, disdain for the recognition of human rights. 3, identification of enemies, scapegoats as a unifying cause. 4, supremacy of the military. 5, rampant sexism. 6, controlled mass media. 7, obsession with national security. 8, religion and government are intertwined. 9, corporate power is protected. 10, labor power is suppressed. 11, disdain for intellectuals and the arts. 12, obsession with crime and punishment. 13, rampant cronyism and corruption. 14, fraudulent elections. The only thing from that list that we don't have clearly, I'd say, is number 14, fraudulent elections. But there have been accusations when fascism candidates haven't won. And now there are indications that the way is being cleared for fraud by the fascist people. I'll point out that Davidson Lohr delivered that sermon on fascism 5 days after the 2004 presidential election, when George W. Bush had been reelected. In a way, it's almost nostalgic to think back on that time, when we at least had better respect for our American system and did pay more heed to the Constitution. We made it through then. Today, I'm not as sure that we'll recover with a better president 3 years away. How can we not just end this fascist movement, but destroy that undertone of Hitlerism that continued in private? That fascism has risen even after a world war nearly a century past. But now again, we must defeat forces of dictatorship and end racism that still goes on regardless of the changes in society. I don't have answers. I can look some to our Unitarian Universalism. There are inspirations from the past. James Luther Adams, whom Karen quoted before I began this talk, was a well-regarded theologian and seminary professor, but he also did the work and resisted fascism, while getting some people to recognize their own racism. Norbert Chopik, who started the flower communion that we observe every spring, died after being in the Dachau concentration camp. He had done what he could in his home of Czechoslovakia to resist Nazism. Charles R. Joy did some, let's say, extra legal work in Eastern Europe to try to help people flee the rise of Hitler. He was one of the originators of what's now the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And he served our church earlier, the 1931-32 church year, as interim minister. Waitstill Sharp, who served here for a time in 1947 when our minister Arthur Olson was on assignment to the American Unitarian Association in Boston. During the run-up to World War II, worked with his wife Martha Sharp in Europe, doing some of the same work as Charles Joy. You can read or see about them in Defying the Nazis, a book and a Ken Burns film. The situation of politics and the president, though, aren't what I want this talk to center on today. It's larger than that. Societal, really. And politics is only a part. Racism and fascism are showing in political leaders and other participants' thoughts, words, and deeds, aren't they? The racism that underlies so much of the right wing in politics is rising. It never went away, and we've had times of real resistance. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, Black Lives Matter of only a few years ago are large examples, but we see that racism continues to hurt people. Did you, as I did, have drilled into you the saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me"? I had to repeat that to myself many times when bullied or demeaned. You know that words do hurt. We don't ever develop thick enough skins to deflect all the thoughts, speech, and actions of people who want to hurt us in any manner. The speech I talk about here is not the freedom of speech, but the indicator of how people think, speak, and act to enable supremacy, not equity or equality, and advantage only for them. Let's use our thought, speech, action to make wherever we are better. Today, that's coming so much more to mean opposing racism and fascism. All of this can be centered in love. Our Unitarian Universalism, as witnessed by the lives of Chopik, Joy, Sharp, Adams, and many others, can make a difference in resistance. It's on us now. Blessed be, and so be it.
Thank you, Reverend Tim. At this time for the offering, we will pass the baskets here in the sanctuary. All of you, including our YouTube viewers, can also donate electronically or by mail. Thank you for being generous and for helping Unitarian Universalism to thrive in Toledo. For more congregational singing, let's sing number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
Now it's the coming soon part of our gathering where we tell you what's scheduled for next Sunday, we give some announcements, and we also let you know what's up for right after we leave the sanctuary. Next Sunday, join us for a spiritual forum in Fellowship Hall at 9:45 a.m. when Mike Ferner, a longtime friend of this congregation, will be here representing Veterans for Peace.
For the 11 a.m. service next Sunday, which will be 5 days before Halloween, Reverend Tim will speak on a reed and an oath. The reed is the Wiccan reed, and ye harm none, do what ye will, which we recite together every Sunday, and will say again in a few minutes. The oath is the Hippocratic oath, commonly applied to medical practice, and will concentrate on the concept that we attribute to the oath. First, do no harm, and how it fits with the oath. While Reverend Tim will talk about harm, he encourages all to have a harmless Halloween. Oh, and for kids and all of you, costumes are welcome next Sunday.
We're preparing a new membership directory. Our current one, only 2 years old, already seems to be more out of date than we need for good communication and community. As we'd like to know what our members look like today, Tom Sheehan will be taking pictures of individuals and families so we can put them in the directory. He'll be outside our east entrance after today's service, and he'll have one more session, week not yet determined. It could be next week or the week after, but if you can, please get your photo taken for the directory today.
Yes.
It's in a classroom because I didn't know about the website.
He's moved it to a classroom. So look for Tom. You saw him sing. He's in the blue shirt.
At 6 p.m. this coming Thursday, the 23rd, our World Dining Group will share a meal at Korean Na, which serves Korean dishes and sushi. It's on Bernath Parkway off Airport Highway. If you'd like to have dinner there with fellow Unitarians, contact Michael Croak. I haven't seen Mike here today, but you might see him wandering around the building. Attendance is limited to 20 people, and separate checks are expected.
From 5 to 7 p.m. in Fellowship Hall this coming Saturday, the 25th, First Unitarian is having a Halloween party and chili cook-off. There will be a short Halloween movie for the kids at 6 p.m. and chili to taste from all of you who will bring it. The UUFYI posting says to bring your favorite chili or any other food you'd like to contribute. I don't think we'll be following international chili cook-off rules, if there are any. So if your favorite chili is store-bought and you make it your special recipe just by adding Tabasco, it's allowed, but please don't accept a prize under false pretenses.
Let's look ahead to November. That month now fits into our coming soon. We're accepting vendors for our holiday bazaar, which will take place Saturday and Sunday, November 9th and 10th. Vendors' wares should be handmade, PG-13 or cleaner, let's say, and not required, but encouraged that they have a holiday or winter theme. The vendor interest form can be taken from our UUToledo.org website. For vendors and shoppers, lunch, dessert, and bottled drinks will be for sale during the bazaar. If you have questions about the bazaar, including if you would like to volunteer to help, contact Marna Slauson or Sandra Kosak-Sills.
In 4 weeks, there's a plan to have a committee fair after our Sunday service on November 16th. We're giving some advance notice so your committees, groups, and teams can start planning how you'll present your area. While I wonder how many people will take leftover Halloween candy if it lasts through half of November to their committee booths as an incentive for people curious about your committee, group, or team. And there's one other thing I want to add. There is a congregational survey form in the lobby at the welcome table that you can take a hard copy and fill out, or you can get the UPC code or the QR code to fill it out online. And this will help determine some congregational interests as well. So please look for that.
The final coming soon entry is for me to invite you to join us in Fellowship Hall after today's service for coffee, conversation, and social time.
Let's have one more observance of spiritual practice. We have gone beyond ourselves with a pastoral time and turned within